Hello everybody. So today we're going to be doing a video that I talked about a while back in the What's Going On with AOC video. So this year's AOC is pretty much over, and I wanted to talk about how well they did. I was originally going to talk about all the major suggestions that they made and whether they were good or not, but like even doing that sort of video quickly would take hours, so we're not going to do that. If you want to look at what AOC has suggested, then the links for that are below along with their Discords. I think it's fair to say that every AOC member had good suggestions, along with some bad ones. But at the end of the day, as a community, we don't really care that much about what AOC talks about. That's great and all. We care about what happens in-game. We care about the impact of those discussions. So we're going to go over what AOC managed to do. What did this AOC get done? So we're going to look at what they suggested, what went through, the amount of things that they suggested that did go through, and how good some of those suggestions were. As a disclaimer, we can only look at what we can see, right? So if something happened behind the scenes or wasn't mentioned, we just don't really have any way of knowing. We also don't know how much impact AOC had on changes. They could have suggested something that was already going to happen, or they could have been the complete reason for a change. But we're working with what we got. Also worth mentioning that looking back, sometimes a thing wouldn't be changed in the patch after a meeting or even the next patch after that, so some stuff could still be in the works. Also, hi 2021 AOC, I know you guys are watching this. So yeah, be nice, benefit of the doubt and all that. Now let's get into it. We're just gonna go alphabetically, so Alive is up first. If I read through every single suggestion, it's going to take forever, so they're going to be up on screen, you guys can read. Now this seems like really bad, like that's all he did, but it is worth pointing out that there are some really good suggestions that EvoMojo did look into, like more customizable customs, a better reporting system, easy to implement ideas for gold sinks, quicker drafts and ranks. Like there are some good things that he suggested. And that theme is pretty much true for all AOC members, but this is all that went live. He also suggested Grover ult being consumed immediately after casting, and a version of Aegis nerfs, but by the time that he suggested both of these changes, they were either already live or on PTS, or already going to happen in some way. So it's kind of hard to tell how much impact AOC had on those sorts of things. Now on to Hyuga. We're just going to be looking at what they did, and we're going to talk about what they did later. So this is just going to be the summary first. So there are some balance changes in here, but most of them are on talents. Like most of the time that he spent was talking about different talents. The only ones that actually got changed, to my knowledge, are Luminary and Eagle Eye. For Jaimeras, pronunciation hard. Apparently some of the stuff that gets talked about in the first meeting was like mentioned by other people, so I might only be able to give credit to one person because that's all I have access to. Jaimeras asked for Grover to be able to see his own healing range. This was supposed to happen, but it hasn't yet, and I don't know why, but it's worth mentioning anyways. For Mariam, there are these things. I don't play on PS4, so I don't know if PS4 has old VGS or not, so I'm putting it up here anyways. So Parallax has the highest number of things that went live. I'm not sure how I'm going to fit this on screen. I'm sorry, editing me in the future. SterileTick also has a decent amount of suggestions. It's worth mentioning that every single suggestion that this guy made in the first meeting went through, which is a very Chad move. He also suggested not to replace Yomi, which, like, I mean, that's a weird suggestion, because I know Yomi reworks were getting talked about, but, like, it hasn't been reworked, but it was also suggestions to not do something, so I don't know what I should include it or not, so I'm just going to talk about it instead. For Syberbolt, the devs gave a response to one of his questions, not a suggestion, but a question, in one of the meetings, and it sort of relates to a SterileTick suggestion, too. So Syberbolt was asking about like support tickets and stuff, and EvoMojo said, "The result of this is they created a new organization which encompasses both the support team, community management, with additional focus on trust and safety and cheating. They've been in the process of getting this group going, but one of their focuses has been driving ticket response time down. They are happy to report we have been able to do this very successfully." So I'm not sure that's entirely related to a suggestion, but you know, that's good. Ticket response times being down is good. Syberbolt also asked for raise heal to work on a percentile basis instead of a flat HP basis. I would have sworn that other AOC people asked for this, but it's not in the notes. So for TanaDisney, there's not too much to say here. This is all the stuff that she suggested that went live. So all we've done so far is just list off what they've done. Let's dive into it a little deeper, go from objective to subjective. Also, if I missed anything, I'm sorry, please correct me. All the sources and stuff are below. Alive, so all these card buffs, these are great, but I get the feeling that most of them were going to happen anyways. Number changes, like the ones that these cards got, are a really easy and good thing for AOC to talk about because it's impactful and it's realistic. So I wish he did like more of these, especially with lesser used cards, like, you know, that whole illusion of choice thing I like to talk about. The only things I see him suggesting that wouldn't really have happened otherwise were the Dredge Sustain nerfs, the Spirit Domain buffs, and maybe the Midnight Stroll nerf. The changes themselves I think are fine. The Dredge one is weird, but apparently BR likes Dredge, so I don't know. And I honestly think the Spirit's Domain buff is a little cosmetic. But this is basically a one-way conversation, right? Alive makes these suggestions for AOC, Parallax puts the suggestions in a doc for the community, I talk about the suggestions to whoever's watching this, and it's just hard to have like an actual proper conversation about this, which is why I think it's important to elect AOC members whose judgment you trust. One of Alive's first suggestions in AOC was to fix matchmaking. One of Alive's first suggestions in AOC was to fix matchmaking, which is great. I made a short video, which is linked below, if you want to understand what people thought of matchmaking at that time. But his suggestion on how to fix matchmaking was to split the rank queue into two separate queues, from Bronze 5 to Plat 3 and Plat 2 to GM, or I forget the numbers exactly, but something along those lines. Basically to split matchmaking into two separate queues. I think this is stupid. I think it's very, very stupid. It messes up matchmaking in Plat. Having a random jump in matchmaking is very bad, and it's likely going to be pretty hard to implement. So, did Alive do some great changes? Yes. Did he suggest some changes that I want and that I see that the community seems to really want, but didn't go through because of who knows why? I really wish EvoMojo wouldn't mark so many things yellow or red. Also yes. However, he also suggested some absolutely crazy things, and the relatively low number of things that actually went through shows that he didn't really get what AOC should and can do, and it didn't really improve over the 10 months-ish duration of AOC. So while I think that I can trust his judgment well enough, I don't think I trust Alive's ability to actually get stuff done. That being said, part of the reason that he couldn't get stuff done is because EvoMojo didn't want to implement some of the really good suggestions that he wanted. So, you know. And this is why editing scripts are hard, because like I talked a lot about Alive there, but by the time I actually got to looking at the rest of the AOC members, I think I spend more time talking about Alive than anyone else, which is good in a way because he had the most potential, I want to say, and he also brought up a lot of things. But looking at a lot of other AOC members, there's really not that much, so there's just not much to talk about. Looking at Hyuga, right? Looking at his balance suggestions, I don't see anything like super unique, right? I don't see anything that would have happened without AOC. So while it's great that AOC is taking the community's feedback to EvoMojo, I kind of view that as the bare minimum. That is the job that you sign up for. And with an average of around one small balance change per meeting, I don't think that's that much. But Hyuga spent most of his time on talents. The only two, like I said, that he suggested that got changed and that got changed were Luminary and Eagle Eye. And those reworks are great. Maybe not the execution, but those talents getting reworked were good. But the fact that there were only two, I think this sort of speaks to the quality of Hyuga's suggestions. A lot of them are really weird or janky or unneeded or not super realistic. So there's not much to talk about here. Some rather generic balance suggestions, and hardly any results to show for the main thing that he talked about all year. For Jaimeras, this man got 6 things done all year. 3 of those things, the Twitch art changing patch to patch, test maps and customs, and the EV blink duration buff, are unique. I don't think there's any way I can dance around that. Like, whatever the quality of what he suggested, like, they're good things. He barely got anything done. Unless there's some, like, behind-the-scenes NDA stuff I don't know about. So yeah, he got 6 things done. Good things, but only 6 things. For Mariam, so she also only got 6 things done all year. One of those was already happening when she suggested it, and 2 of her suggestions are unique. 2! the Octavia weapon changes, and adding old VGS for PS4. And I don't even know if that latter one is actually happening or not. And again, good changes, but there's so few changes. And you might be thinking, well, maybe the PDFs aren't right, or maybe AOC just can't affect the game that much, or maybe they can only affect the game in small ways. But as the fate of doing this in alphabetical order would have it, we're going to get to that in a second. So first of all, Parallax made PDFs summarizing every meeting except for the first, which she made a video for, and she also made other videos summarizing the meetings. This is awesome and it's really appreciated. That being said, I feel like there's some space for improvement here. She could have made the PDFs, made the video, posted the video, then waited a day or two, then posted the PDF, and that way, you get to farm YouTube ad revenue. That being said, look at all this, look at all these changes! I feel like most of these are good too, like some of them are a bit iffy, right? The execution on not being able to bind to teammates is weird, Fade to Black getting an internal cooldown isn't great, but overall these are good balance changes. I like these. So on top of the suggestions that she had that didn't go through, this is really good. This is a lot of stuff and it's good suggestions. And it's good results. So Sterile actually ran as a joke. He wasn't trying to get AOC, he just kind of put his hat in the ring as a meme. So kind of strange that someone who ran as a joke was able to get into AOC. Maybe the voting system is a bit weird. No, I'm not bitter in the slightest. Why do you ask? But when he did get elected as AOC rep, he stepped up. He didn't quite have as many suggestions that got through as Parallax, but the quality of his suggestions is a bit higher. There's quite a few talent changes in here, so like reworks and changes to talents, and again, the whole illusion of choice thing that I like to talk about. And overall, the things he suggested are just pretty impactful. I wish he could have gotten more done. So Syberbolt actually ran saying that he wouldn't do balance suggestions, and he didn't really, so that's cool. He got some nice quality of life bug fix sort of things done, and that's great, and he did make a video summarizing the first meeting, but then his PC decided to crap out on him, and he couldn't do too much afterwards, which like, that sucks, but IRL stuff happens. So I'm not actually sure if it's like TanaDisney or Lao. I'm just going to go with TanaDisney because that's what's written on most of the AOC things. So here's the return to having very few things that went through. I don't know what it is with AOC and Aegis, Dredge, Tiger, Lex, Strix, and Octavia nerfs. I feel like every AOC member suggested them. Anyhow, if we don't count the suggestions that she made that were already happening, we're left with 4 suggestions. If we don't count suggestions that other AOC members suggested, we're left with nothing. Literally nothing. Everything that TanaDisney suggested that went through was either already happening or suggested by someone else. There's just not much to talk about here. The changes, again, are fine, but you know, this really isn't that good. So overall, this AOC got not that much done. There's some cool card changes, a handful of talent changes, a lot of minor balance changes, and a few quality of life things. But overall, like, the only changes that I have really felt are matchmaking and some item store buffs. I joked about it earlier, the Aegis, Dredge, Tiger, Lex, Strix, Octavia nerfs, and I can't help but wonder if all those would have happened without the AOC. Like, how big of an impact did they really have? And as someone who's hopefully going to vote in the next AOC elections whenever they happen in like the next month or something, you gotta think about if what the AOC did is good enough for you. I think it's important that the community knows about this stuff. Accountability is good, so we get the best AOC possible, so we get the best game possible. Personally, I think AOC can and should have a bigger impact on this, and I think there's still a lot of nonsense in the game that's not getting fixed or not getting prioritized or whatever it is. There's some AOC members that got a lot done, and if we had more members like that, AOC could have a really big impact. I will be making a video for when AOC voting happens with like all the links and how to and all that, so subscribe for that if you're interested. But overall, I was pretty disappointed in this year's AOC. I feel like it was a huge missed opportunity. Some people barely did anything, and some people did well, but it seems like everyone could have done more. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, hit all those social media buttons, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.